Hi, everyone. We will be talking about grade 3, module 1, lesson 12 today. And the goal of this lesson is I can interpret the quotient as the number of groups or the number of objects in each group using units of 2. So before we begin, we really should go over a little bit of the division vocabulary. So the first word you need to remember is quotient. And that is the answer to a division problem. The next word is dividend, which is the total number that will be divided out equally. That's in the front here when it's set up like this, or it's underneath the house. I call this a house when it's set up this way, or it's on the top when your division is set up this way. Notice there are three different ways to show division. We mostly focus on this way in third grade. And then you have divisor. The divisor is the number that does the dividing. It's like the boss. She tells the total number or he tells the total number how to divide out. So in this case, 4 is the divisor. That's the boss. And she's telling 20, take 4 away until you get to nothing. 4, 8, 12, doing your skip counting. Or she's saying, make 4 groups and divide 20 out equally. So the divisor's like the big boss, right? Divisor's in the front here. She's telling 20 to divide out into 4 groups or to skip count by 4. And then here, the divisor's underneath the bar, and she's telling this 20 divide out by 4. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. And then you have what's called inverse operations. So multiplication and division are considered inverse operations, where subtraction and addition are inverse operations. And what that means is the operation that reverses the effect of another. So basically, you can say, okay, so I divided 20 by 4, and I end up with a 5. So if I skip count by 4 until I get to 20, I get 5. But let's go backwards and replace the equal sign, let's say, with the times, because they are inverse operations. Does 5 times 4 equal 20? And yes, it does. So that's an inverse operation. Some things to remember when you're looking at multiplication and division is that when you multiply, you are combining equal groups. So you're doing repeated addition. When you're dividing into equal groups. So this thing that stays the same is the equal groups part, and they're sharing equally. You can also use repeated subtraction to find the answer to division. And to do that, you would start with your total number 15, and you would take out 3. 3 is the boss here, right? 3 is the divisor. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. So that would be 5. You're repeatedly taking away from 15. All right, and then we have some terms you have for multiplication. You have factor, and answer is product. So you have 2 factors with this one. Sometimes when you get a little older, you'll have like 3 or 4 factors, and you'll learn that later. But the number you're multiplying is called a factor. The other number is a factor. The answer to multiplication is product. You're looking for the total number. When you divide, you start with the total number, and that's called a dividend. Then you have the bossy divisor, and then the answer to that will be your quotient. See how it swaps places in this. So your quotient ends up being one of these factors eventually, right? And your divisor is actually a factor in multiplication. Your product or your answer to multiplication becomes your dividend. Here's a sample if you were doing a sentence or a strip diagram. So in a strip diagram for multiplication, you know all of the amount of groups, and you know how many per group here, but you don't know the total number. For division, you start with the total number, and maybe you don't know the groups or how many per group. You use an array for both. So now you know you have 3 rows of 5. For this one, you start with 15, the total number, and you split it into 3 rows. So how many per row? And then you can also use these number bonds. It's showing 3 groups of 5. For division, you know you have 15 and you know 3 is one of your numbers, so you're looking for how many per group. For multiplication, you do repeated addition. 5 plus 5 plus 5 equals your total number 15. And then for division, you do repeated subtraction. So you start with your 15, your total number, subtract 5, you get 10. Take 10, subtract 5, you get 5. Take 5, subtract another 5, you get 0. So 3, 1, 2, 3 would be your answer. And then down below, you can also find this on the number line. So as I've been telling you, there are a lot of different ways to do addition or multiplication and division. You just have to, try a few different ways sometimes that works for you. Do not forget that skip counting is super important when you are trying to practice for multiplication or division. You could use charts like these. That was the 2s. This is the 4s. You can also use the skip counting strips that I left in Google Classroom. And then on to the lesson.